On October 30th, 2025, a Jet Blue Airbus A320 was cruising peacefully at 35,000 feet over the Atlantic, and then, in a matter of seconds, the aircraft suddenly pitched nose down. Passengers hit the ceiling, drinks went flying, and 15 people ended up in the hospital. The official explanation? A software issue triggered by intense radiation from the sun, part of a powerful solar storm connected to an X-class flare. But step back. At the same time big tech and mainstream outlets tell you to ignore conspiracy theories about space weather and pole shifts, their own science headlines are quietly admitting that Earth's poles are drifting fast enough to threaten navigation systems by the end of this century. Tonight on The Right Slant, we're going to walk through what really happened on that JetBlue flight, what it says about our fragile, high-tech civilization, and why even a basic Google search reveals that something strange is happening with our planet's magnetic and rotational poles. The flight was JetBlue 1174, an Airbus A320-232 operating from Cancun, Mexico to Newark, New Jersey. Around 14:22 Universal Time Coordinated, cruising at 35,000 feet, everything looked routine. Then, without any command from the pilots, the aircraft's flight control computers suddenly commanded a nose-down input. According to detailed technical reporting that pulled from FAA and ESA documents, both of the plane's elevator aileron computers, the ALACs, received corrupted data and reacted as if the jet were about to stall. In 4 seconds, the aircraft dropped roughly 190 feet, enough to throw unbelted passengers into the air and cause injuries, even though some media outlets exaggerated this as thousands of feet. The pilots did exactly what pros do. They disconnected the autopilot, stabilized the aircraft, and diverted to Tampa for an emergency landing, where 15 passengers were taken to the hospital. Thankfully, no one died. Here's the key. This wasn't turbulence. This was the flight computer itself being tricked by bad data likely caused by high-energy particles from space. Before we go deeper into the solar flare, the space weather crisis, and what Google's own search results reveal about pole shifts, do me a favor. If you want more unapologetically conservative, Christian-grounded analysis of stories the corporate media glosses over, like this video, subscribe to The Right Slant, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. So what do investigators actually say caused this? An aviation safety analysis of the Airbus fleet grounding lays it out. A powerful X-class solar flare erupted 2 days earlier, launching a wave of high-energy protons toward Earth. As that radiation washed through the upper atmosphere, it dramatically increased particle flux at airline cruising altitudes hundreds of times higher than at ground level. Those particles can flip bits in microchips, so-called single-event upsets. In this case, the ELC software version running on thousands of A320 family jets turned out to be vulnerable. Under the right radiation hit, it could interpret nonsense data as a deadly stall and shove the plane's nose down. That's exactly what appears to have happened on JetBlue 1174. Regulators responded by ordering emergency software changes and checks on about 6,000 Airbus A320 family aircraft worldwide, causing flight disruptions and groundings across multiple airlines. Now, there is some debate over whether the specific trigger on that day was solar radiation from a geomagnetic storm or a random cosmic ray from a distant supernova. Some space radiation experts argue the sun wasn't particularly active at that exact hour and point to deep space cosmic rays instead. But notice what everyone agrees on. High-energy particles from space can and do knock around our electronics. Our aircraft, satellites, and power grids are more fragile than we like to admit. The problem isn't just the sun. It's our systems, built by the same technocratic class that tells you everything's fine, trust the experts, until something literally falls out of the sky. We're in solar cycle 25, and it's turning out to be more intense than many forecasts predicted. Space weather centers have logged a surge in powerful flares over the last couple of years, including multiple events at the highest X-class levels. This isn't just pretty auroras. Strong solar storms have already disrupted radio communications on polar airline routes. The same kind of radiation that flipped bits on the A320 can threaten GPS, satellites, and even ground-based power grids. From a conservative perspective, here's the issue. Our leaders spend trillions chasing symbolic climate deals and funding bureaucracies. But basic hardening of critical infrastructure against known risks like solar storms and magnetic disturbances is often an afterthought. We've known since the 1989 Quebec blackout that space weather can knock out power for millions. Yet we're still flying thousands of jets with software that only gets seriously audited after a near disaster. That's not following the science. That's gambling with people's lives and then hoping they forget by the next news cycle. Now let's talk about the bigger picture, pole shifts. If you go to Google right now and type something like North Pole could shift 90 feet, you don't get fringe blogs. You get mainstream science outlets and finance press all saying essentially the same thing. Because of melting ice sheets and mass redistribution, Earth's geographic and rotational poles could move on the order of 80 to 90 feet by 2100 in worst-case scenarios. At the same time, other articles talk about magnetic north racing from Canada towards Siberia at tens of miles per year, fast enough that global magnetic models have to be updated early because navigation is going out of sync. Now, to be precise and fair, most geophysicists say there's no sign of an immediate, catastrophic flip of the entire magnetic field. If a reversal happens, it likely plays out over thousands of years, not days. What they are worried about is navigation chaos, GPS errors, satellite issues, and radiation exposure as the field weakens and shifts. So when people say, even Google is telling us we're close to a pole shift, what they're really picking up on is this. Mainstream science is quietly admitting that we are already messing with Earth's rotation and pole position through mass redistribution. The magnetic field is changing faster than expected, forcing emergency updates to the world magnetic model used by militaries, airlines, and drilling companies worldwide. Yet somehow, these stories never rise above the noise of partisan politics and celebrity gossip. From a conservative, Christian viewpoint, this raises obvious questions. Are we being good stewards of the world God gave us when we build a civilization so dependent on fragile, centralized tech while ignoring the very real, measurable changes in the planet's magnetic and rotational behavior? To sum it up, a JetBlue flight had its nose forced down by corrupted data, most likely due to high-energy particles from a solar storm or cosmic rays. That one incident triggered a global grounding and software recall for thousands of Airbus jets. At the same time, the sun is getting more active, and even mainstream science sources admit that Earth's poles, both geographic and magnetic, are drifting in ways that could seriously disrupt navigation and technology this century. This isn't about panic. It's about priorities. Instead of lecturing citizens, censoring debate, and treating science like a religion, our institutions should be hardening the grid and critical infrastructure, updating and radiation-proofing aviation and satellite systems, and telling the truth about the risks, even when it's inconvenient. As Christians and conservatives, we don't worship the sun, the earth, or the state. We worship God, and we believe in truth, responsibility, and preparedness. The JetBlue incident is a warning shot. Creation is bigger, wilder, and more powerful than our software updates, and pretending otherwise is the real denial. If you found this breakdown helpful, hit like, subscribe to The Right Slant, and ring that notification bell. We'll keep digging into the stories the corporate media and big tech would rather you ignore. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay informed, stay free, and God bless.